Hi guys, welcome back to the Social Tune, and today we're going to take a look at the new album by Surfer Blood, Snowdonia.
You know you're always my little seed. In a matter of, it's a matter of time. In a matter of, it's a matter of time.
So here's a fun question. Should your opinion of an artist as a person matter when you're reviewing their music? Much as we like to pretend otherwise, all music critics have a slight subjective side, there's no denying that. And I'd argue that some of that definitely stems from our feelings towards certain artists. For example, I absolutely loathe everything about Chris Brown. But in that case, the music also tends to suck and kind of contributes to that distaste. On another note, take someone like Will Smith. Sure, none of his albums are outright classics, and yet people still remember them years later because the artist was so jovial, likable, and charismatic. So going into this album, my first exposure to Surfer Blood, the only things I really knew about them was that A, their frontman was viscerally hated by a lot of people, and B, that one of their key members had died of cancer recently. Now, their last couple of albums were panned, both critically and by the fans. But honestly, going back to listen to them, I don't really see why. Okay, it didn't really blow me away, but in terms of indie rock inspired by the 60s and 70s, it wasn't bad. And from the tone of the reviews on those albums, a lot of the distaste and criticism seemed to stem from the frontman's private life, which doesn't really seem fair to me. So going into Snowdonia, considering the band had won back some goodwill, thanks to the death of their guitarist Thomas Fichetti, as horrible as that sounds, I was curious to see where people would fall on this album. And honestly, it seems that people are finally back to being objective and ready to put the past behind them, as many fans and critics are calling this a return to form for the band. However, while I will say it's good, I wouldn't exactly call it a return to form exactly. Rather, I'd say it's a softer, breezier version of the sounds they've been experimenting with on their last couple of albums, which ultimately results in the same level of quality, meaning it's good, but definitely not great. And the place to start with that is the production.
Silence going.
Now, on this album, Surfer Blood seemed to be pulling predominantly from 60s rock, from acts like the Beach Boys and the Beatles. And look, I love 60s rock, I'm a complete sucker for that sound. So this rock worship kind of works for me. So of course, while there are guitars on this album, they're mixed in a way that makes them sound blissful and airy, which kind of works for the mood of the album, considering it's more laid back and cheerful than any of their other albums, which is a little odd when you actually consider the lyrical content and the passing of their band member, but okay. The album starts off with A Matter of Time, with its steady guitar riffs, catchy hook, and soft drum beats. Now with that being said, the hook is a tad repetitive, but again, it does work for the blissful nature the song is going for. It doesn't work quite as well on the following track, Frozen, which was much the same instrumentally, except with punchier drums and guitar tones that I wasn't a huge fan of. Now one definite standout is the lead-off single Six Flags in F4G, which features the weirdest instrumental on this album, going for a kick drum, a looping guitar riff, and some minor chords thrown in on top of that, before switching into the same airy, laid-back production style that we got on our first two songs. And I'll say it, unlike some other albums that I reviewed recently, these songs don't really run together. They all have catchy enough hooks to make them distinct. But there's definitely an instrumental pattern to these songs, and it's really easy to notice, especially considering how they wear their influences on their sleeves. The title track starts off with a great instrumental intro before transitioning into the sharper grooves of the main track, with a fantastic hook reminiscent of parquet courts of all things. Too bad they just randomly ramble off into meaningless near the end of that track, which was just begging for a final chorus, which happens again later on Instant Doppelgangers. Then you get the sharpest track on this album, Dino J, with some great guitar work with some real bite to it, on top of echoing, gleaming keys in the background of that track, which really added a lot of lovely atmosphere. And then of course you have the weirdest track on this album, Taking Care of Eddy, with its careening, random, funhouse guitars, which were nevertheless extremely pleasant and fun. But overall, the production and instrumentation here are what you'd expect from this brand of rock. There are no real surprises, and our vocalists are much the same.
Yesterday, no matter if it's gone, your free time is ending soon. Either way, it won't stop the world from turning, frozen in the armory.
Like I said, John Paul Pitts seems to be the main problem that a lot of people have with this band. He was arrested back in 2012 for beating up his then girlfriend, and yeah, it's a little hard to sympathize with a guy like that, but if I'm being honest, he sounds fine here. On their past couple of albums, he had a sour attitude about him, which was really unflattering and felt really unjustified. But on this album, he's much more cheery, which, again, is a little unsettling considering recent events. But again, he does a solid job, and he does match the instrumental tones. The other vocalist on this album is bassist Lindy Mills, and look, I'll be blunt. While there are some nice moments of harmonization on this album, if you aren't paying attention, they will go over your head. You will miss them easily. Her role is to harmonize, and that is it, because she doesn't bring any personality to her tracks. And it's not her fault, it's just that the instrumentals and Pitts' voice are mixed in a way so that her voice is always drowned out. Although, let's be honest, it's not like he's conveying any emotion here either. The entire performance is cheerful, bright, but very monotone, which is strange considering the lyrics.
Try and find my way in the dark, but we can't even see who we are.
Okay, so a lot of these lyrics, despite being incredibly vague, seem to be reflecting two things. One, the current political climate, and two, Pitts' own life. Heck, the album cover is an Antarctic iceberg, which is a pretty good metaphor for 2016 as a whole. Cold and distant and in its own little frozen bubble. Now, outside of certain moments on Carrier Pigeon and Frozen, that does not mean that this is a political album, as a lot of these songs are much more personal to our frontman. Matter of Time is about moving on from past romances. Dino J is about finding love again. Six Flags in F4G is probably the most poetic song on this album, from its title to the references to bitter macaroons and sour eclairs. And the lyrics themselves seem to be about moving on to the future while gaining some knowledge and understanding of the events of the past. Which may also be a reference to his current relationship, as he mentions his partner's great uncle on Taking Care of Eddy, which of course parallels his concerns for his own mother who fell sick early last year. So to sum up, this album is somehow incredibly samey and yet extremely messy. The sound is pretty well defined and I do like it, but it's not like they do anything new with it. The lyrics are personal but not that interesting, and the other members of the band, despite Surfer's Blood's promises that they were going to start over fresh and new, feel painfully underused. Still, ultimately, this album still sounds good, and I will definitely say that there are some really pleasant and good tracks on this album, so I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I'm definitely a fan of the sound, but not so much a big fan of this band. Just go listen to the Beach Boys instead, but still, give this a couple of listens. You'll probably find something you like. So thank you guys for watching. If there are any other albums coming out in the next month or so, please post them in the comments or tweet them at me so I can listen to them and possibly review them. You'll find a link to my Twitter in the description. Feel free to follow me if you'd like. Please subscribe so you don't miss a thing, and until the next time, I'm Finn, and this is The Social Tunes, signing off.